vodka. Wow. Straight. No, I mean straight vodka, not are you straight? It's vodka. Straight, no, okay. Is it straight vodka? Yeah, alright, thank you. Glad we cleared that up.
Why does Fever Tree cost more? So are you impartial to a gin and tonic and you swear by Fever Tree premium brand tonic water? Consumer psychologist Dimitrios Sivrikos, hope I haven't just butchered their name, from University College London told Supershoppers that Fever Tree's branding, one of the elements of the pricing is that it's quite theatrical. So for instance, on their website, if it says they travel to the Congo for their quinine, but Dimitrios pointed out that 80% of quinine comes from there regardless of the brand anyway. So when you buy Fever Tree, I guess you're covering the cost of their air travel and their carbon offsetting too, I hope. I actually love Fever Tree. I've done my blind taste test and I think it tastes better. So this is something that I recommended in other episodes and all over the shop. All over the shop seems the wrong phrase for what I blog about, but but if you want to switch brands, and you want to know whether an own brand is going to make you happy or not, you can do a taste test at home where you get someone to help you. So if it's something like this, like a drink, you'd get them to put an own brand drink in one glass and your usual brand or the premium brand in another glass, and you try them without knowing which is which and decide your favorite. And a lot of the time you'll be pleasantly surprised by the own brand. Or the other way of doing this is that even if you do prefer the premium one, if there's not a lot in it, quite often when you actually look at the price difference, you decide that, oh, you know what, the own brand, you know what, I think it actually tastes a little bit better. But when I did this kind of taste test with own brand tonic water from the supermarket and Fever Tree, I did choose the Fever Tree every time. Now, if it seems odd that a money blogger who's quite frugal generally would buy premium tonic water ever, this goes back to spending priorities. It's like if you want to buy a flat white without fail every time you go to the coffee shop. And it's something I mentioned again in a blog post called Epic Ways to Save for a House. I didn't create the blog to judge other people's spending, so I know when I'm sat drinking a gin with a Fever Tree mixer, someone somewhere will be like, well, you could do that cheaper. How dare you write about value for money? And I won't give a flying squirrel, because that's gin for you. Apart from the taste though, I like what I like though. And in this case, what I like is expensive. Others might be swayed by the glass bottles. So consumers tend to be very tactile, and Fever Tree comes in these heavy glass bottles, right? So in the show's taste test, they compared Fever Tree, Schweppes and Tesco own brand with the same unnamed gin. So we don't know what gin they were pairing it with, which can influence this because different gins do have very different sort of flavour profiles. And especially if you're choosing a flavoured, I'm getting a little bit too into the gin here now, but flavoured tonic waters will definitely go better with some gins than other. I'm not going to start getting into what you should pair your gin with if you're interested in that. I learnt most of that from going on a tour at a distillery anyway, and again, I didn't just take their word for it. I did sort of a blind taste test after the fact where I was mixing, not all in one afternoon, might I add, where I was pairing different flavours with different gins to see if there really is something in that. So in the show's taste test, they compared Fever Tree, Schweppes and Tesco own brand with the same unnamed gin. 3 out of 5 people, it's not a very large group admittedly, so this is a very small sample, but then again it's if you're doing one of these taste tests at home, it's going to be a sample of 1 or 2 people anyway. It's what you like, isn't it? So 3 out of 5 people preferred Fever Tree and 2 out of 5 preferred the supermarket own brand. Now, Fever Tree fans did say that they would try the own brand because the difference in price was so big, but the difference in taste wasn't that big for them. Like I said earlier, that's pretty common in taste tests. So either the own brand wins out to everyone's surprise but mine, or the branded version gets more votes, but then when the voters find out the price difference, they usually rethink their choice. So do have a taste test of your own with anything like this and compare prices if you're just buying straight tonic water. That reminds me of an exchange at a Harry Styles concert. He came across someone drinking vodka in the audience. Legally, I'm sure not all of his fans are under the age of 18. I think it might have been in America actually. Not all of his fans are under the age of 21. And so he asked them straight and they said, "No, I'm gay." And he was of course asking if they were drinking the vodka neat. But by all means order a gay vodka the next time you go out. Just say Harry Styles sent you. I'd also point out that I tend to buy the flavours of Fever Tree because there isn't always an equivalent of those easily available in an own brand. So I think Aldi have now brought out their versions. Similarly, they're in these big glass bottles, right? So they're sort of trying to mimic the premium features of the premium brand. So they have a nicer label than most of what you'd normally find in the discounters, and they charge more for that than the usual unbranded tonic water that you'd find in Aldi. But obviously they're still cheaper than Fever Tree because they're not trying to tell you not trying to sell you ingredients with the same story behind it as Fever Tree. We're not trying to tell you the same story, I could have said as well. And again, this came up in the blog post I mentioned earlier, regards what different people's spending priorities are and how we justify what we buy beyond what Remy would say, which is simply, I wanted it, so I bought it. There's another show called Save Money Good Health that I covered, and they did a segment on why Voss water is priced the way it is. Just generally, bottled water, you can pay as much as you're willing to pay. Voss water definitely is at the high end, and it's partly down to them just using very heavy glass bottles, because glass bottles add cost because of the weight to ship them. If you're listening to this and you're feeling entrepreneurial, you want to have your own lemonade stand and then start shipping lemonade, it's going to cost more in glass bottles. You're probably going to pass that cost on to the customer. It's just a thought. So as with the product tests, I want to round up taste tests on the blog for you to help you spend better. That actually already exists. So if you're thinking of holding your own taste test to see how much you can save, you just want pointing in the direction of budget food and drink that others have already voted for over the branded version, check out the taste test. I'll add this to that.